Hey everybody, welcome to the Home Care Forum podcast with your hosts, Sasha, Guillaume, and Emina Poricanin. Emina, how's it going?
Okay, it's been a busy week in Albany. Next week is their break. So, best you believe, all of the associations are up there this week, and they will be after next week lobbying for their initiatives.
Yeah, you were giving me some play-by-play of what was happening at the legislative session that you were able to sit in on, or the committee hearing. So why don't we bring our listeners up to speed on what some of that was?
Sure, absolutely. So earlier this week, the health chairs of the Assembly and the Senate had a number of representatives and stakeholders testifying. One of them was the Commissioner of Health, the other was the Medicaid Director, and then there were a number of the State Financial Services Director was there as well. But then there were a number of association representatives as well in the healthcare spectrum, right? Nursing home facilities, association presidents, home care presidents, SEIU union reps were there as well, hospice, leading age. I mean, all sectors of the healthcare spectrum were represented. CDPAP was there obviously as well. Now, what was interesting is that it was an all-day hearing, as it is every year, right? The representatives from the Assembly and the Senate have an opportunity to ask those testifying questions. And from the beginning of the day and the testimonies, CDPAP was front and center. There were a lot of questions about CDPAP. What I thought was interesting is that when the conversation turned to the spending, because that's a big part of the state's concern, how do we close this growing Medicaid expense and this gap in funding? Medicaid director said that the gap would be closed through the consolidation of CDPAP. So from the state standpoint, all the problems can be solved through this CDPAP consolidation. I don't agree with that. I think that is an insurmountable amount of pressure to put on themselves as the Department of Health, but then also on just one program. There's no way that this is the reason for it. And I just don't know if it all came together for everybody there. Now, what was interesting is that no one said that the single statewide legislation should be reversed or changed or modified in any way. What they have all said is that the April 1 deadline for implementing the transitions is not feasible. Rivera was probably the most vocal opponent of the entire 4-1 deadline. The commissioner said, we really don't have a choice about meeting that deadline. That deadline is hardwired into the law. And he's correct. And this is what I have always said as well. The DOH does not have discretion in this case to issue one of those letters saying, we're postponing this, we're delaying it. They can't. The DOH has to do what the law tells them. And even though there are sometimes ambiguities that they take advantage of, sometimes the providers take advantage of ambiguities as well. In this case, it is black and white that the transition and the CDPAP has to be finalized by April 1 to the single statewide FI. So, if there's anything to be accomplished through the budget season and the changes that will happen legislatively through the budget, I think you're going to see possibly a delay of this past April 1, but I'm not seeing anything indicating that it would be reversed. Now, does a delay certainly open the door to a reversal? Absolutely. Because what also became clear through the questioning and the discussions is that PPL is asking for reimbursement rates that are higher than what the plans pay to providers now. And the Plan Association president testified about this very clearly. He said that PPL, because it basically has a monopoly, can name its price. And even though everybody has been screaming the word monopoly about this for months now, that point really brought it home, right? Because PPL currently still does not have a contract with any MLTC. And why is that? Because they're asking for unreasonable rates. And why are they asking for unreasonable rates? Because they can. It's not like the MLTCs have any leverage in this negotiation, right? And then the second point that was brought up by the MLTC Association president is that PPL is asking for an advance. And we've all heard about this. We've discussed it on this podcast. PPL has to front billions of dollars in payroll to the personal assistants before it starts getting reimbursed by New York State. Who is going to pay that? Well, even though PPL did, as part of its RFP application, certified that it has a $100 million line of credit in case of a default for day-to-day operating expenses, they need a lot more. Everybody said that. They need a lot more, and they are asking the plans to front load or advance that money. And so the association president, in testifying before the New York State Assembly and Senate, said, we are not a bank. We are not comfortable with these asks from PPL. These negotiations, we are entering them into good faith with PPL. We are hoping that it will all work out, but we are not a bank, and we don't like being put in a position where we have take it or leave it rates. So it was interesting, though. At the end of the day, the association president said, look, we don't oppose the single FI. It was just kind of contrary to everything he said up to that point. We don't necessarily oppose the consolidation of the market into a single FI, but we do oppose how the plans have been, all this responsibility that's been put on them.
I think this is an indication that this thing's not going to save any money, right? If you're asking, the rumors are they asking upwards of $50, right? So how do you get any savings by increasing the reimbursement? So we'll have to wait and see. And there are rumors on the other side where they're paying the aides $17 to $15 an hour, right? So, and when I say rumors, I don't mean I just heard it at the corner bar or something. These are from consultants or people in the industry who have called PPL and they're being told this, right?
Hmm.
So if this is true, is there something in the wage parity elimination that's reclassifying the aides to companions or some other category that's allowing them to circumvent this mandate? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like we'll find out in the details. We've had Joe Pecora, National Home Care Union leader, on our podcast. I think we're trying to get him back on. I might be meeting with him on Tuesday. Maybe I'll try to sneak in that question and bring an answer to you in a future podcast. But we may get the answer before that. So I'm not absolutely sure, but I don't see it. I think things like this, if they keep happening, this conversation around monopolies, that's one thing that scares Democrats, right? That stands out. And if that gets traction, I could see Rivera coming in as the white knight or brown knight and saving the day. So what else we got, Emina?
So one of the other noteworthy things that was discussed at these hearings regarding CDPAP was PPL's ongoing reassurances to the Department of Health that everything is on track. The Department of Health is receiving daily, sometimes they said hourly updates from PPL about how many people are actually signing up. And there were different numbers being discussed. We finally got to the bottom of it, right? DOH was saying 40,000 people signed up, not 40,000. 40,000 reached out, but they were able to sign up a little over 20,000. And we are less than 60 days away from that deadline. So when Rivera's turn came to speak, he was looking at you're open how many hours a day? 6 days a week. We have about 230,000 consumers in this program. You've signed up 20,000. That is not, the math does not add up, is basically what he said very eloquently. And, the Department of Health said, look, it has to add up at the end of the day. We have a deadline in the law. We really don't have any way to push it out. Number one. Number two, the FIs are not helping. They're not cooperating. They're giving out a lot of misinformation. And then number three, he said that he believes PPL is above schedule because the way this is supposed to work is that initially the onboarding would be very slow, but then later it would take off. Lastly, what I thought was also interesting about the number of people subscribed is that the commissioner acknowledged there may be some people who will have a gap in their services. What do I mean by that? I mean, if they're not onboarded to PPL by April 1 and they cannot be providing services under the old FI, that's not even a possibility, folks who are listening. They have to be off the old FI at the end of March 31st. They will lose services. They will not be able to bill for these services. They will not be able to pay their PAs for these services. He didn't know how many people that is. But I think the commissioner kind of said, look, if they don't sign up, That's not our fault. We've done everything we can to get these people onboarded. With PPO, we've been very transparent. And so if they lose services, that's not really on us. What I do want to emphasize to our listeners who are in many respects, obviously on the losing side of this whole CDPAP debacle is that if your PAs have a gap in employment from leaving your FI and going on to PPL's payroll, they're going to be going to unemployment insurance. And it is your account that's going to be charged. And in trying to fight that claim for unemployment, you're going to have to prove that they did not lose employment with you because of your fault and that you tried to get them onboarded to PPL. So a lot of our clients are trying to help, but not help. The not helping may come back to bite you at the time of unemployment because you to unemployment, you're going to have to be showing we did everything we can to facilitate this personal assistant transferring over. Okay, we did everything we can. We sent the letters that the DOH wanted us to send. We sent other communications multiple times. We tried to dial the PPL people with them. You need to start creating a record for these folks, okay? And so, yeah, there will definitely be some gap in services, but you, as a provider who's already facing financial hardship from having to close down this business, you don't need to worry about UI as well.
There's a lot of advocacy and pushback still happening. I don't know, I mean, if you saw the video that's out where it's recording of a transition all made by a Polish speaking consumer attempting to onboard with PPL, and it took an hour and a half, hour 35 minutes is the banner of the video. And it's difficult to watch in that the consumer is not able to find somebody who speaks in their language.
Mm.
They keep trying to get a translator on, call keep dropping, and the person has to call in multiple times to finally get the information that they're requesting. So there's no way that this is going to happen in the timeline if you're needing an hour and a half, 2 hours per call. You know, for the efficiency, it needs to happen a lot faster than that. So I will be speaking downtown on the 19th, I believe at the city council meeting. Rivera is supposed to present, and I was asked to speak there as well. So if you hear this and you want to help support, please come out and cheer on. And we have our hearing for the lawsuit that we have again versus McDonald on Thursday, and I was asked to uh, be present so I can stand and raise my hand and as the named agency in the suit. And you know, we're hopeful that we can get some relief to our agency and hopefully the broader industry for delaying and giving us a pathway to have this repeal. Again, it's political, completely political solution that we're looking for. These are delay tactics or a Hail Mary. It lands, but in my mind, it's delay to get to the legislative sessions or advocacy days. And we're going to be interviewing some associate members on their priorities and you know, hopefully get their take on where we stand.
So I thought it was interesting also, I mean, how confident the commissioner was about PPL's ability to do all of this. And he said PPL already has 150 locations statewide. I was like, 150 locations? What is he talking about? And then it occurred to me he's probably referring to the facilitators and the subs, who, by the way, haven't been paid anything yet, who are taking on the financial burden of PPL's onboarding with some promise of potentially receiving a payment in the future. I mean, the whole thing is just, and then I don't know if our listeners are aware, but the state is shelling out millions of dollars to Centers for Independent Living and other providers to help them assume these subcontractor facilitator roles. So I forget what the figure was. It was 20, 40, or 60 million. I forget what it was. These are not small numbers. So the state is putting this out to pay for these people's ability to be a subcontractor. PL is probably going to get a higher rate than what's being paid now. So I really, as a taxpayer, I'm wondering where are the savings with this? You're just going to kill these small businesses across the state in the interest of saving the state money and preventing individuals. And this came up a few days ago at the hearing that a lot of the operators are making a lot of money in this program. And that is what they seek to eliminate with the consolidation of PPL as well. But okay, fine. It's not going to be 650 individual owners. It's going to be, a private equity firm, a husband and wife, or, whoever is behind this PPL glass house. So I honestly don't know where the savings are going to be, but yet another New York mistake. You
Yeah,
had some.
yeah. For me, the only thing, and you hit it on the head. And if I take off my hat as an agency owner and I put on my New York taxpayer hat, you're hitting me both ways. So if there's no savings to our taxes, you take my company and you make me pay more in taxes because you're increasing reimbursement. So thanks, New York.
I don't know if you heard this, but the Department of Justice last night announced that they have filed charges against Hochul and the Attorney General for violating and interfering with federal immigration laws.
Yes, yes, yeah. There's more money that needs to be diverted, and we're a sanctuary city. I mean, it was a bit rich to hear President Trump say that, these are third-rate hotels who are receiving first-rate hotel fees for housing immigrants. But there's a reason why he's trying to buy back his hotel that is down the street from the White House. It's because he knows how much he made in that period, and he's trying to make some more.
Well, so anyways, I guess what I was trying to kind of get to is that the Commissioner of Health asked the Attorney General to investigate who is behind this 10 million campaign and advertisement calling out Hochul for her role in this PPL CDPAP transition. And I guess the Attorney General said we don't have the resources to investigate this. Plus, I think there's a conflict of interest with me being sued alongside Governor Hochul. So it's kind of coming full circle. I mean, look, the immigration thing is a big part of the Trump administration's initiatives in the first 100 days. So I'm not entirely surprised. Government officials have a lot of immunity in what they do under their office. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But, the cute little blonde that he selected to head the Department of Justice and be the Attorney General, let her have her 5 moments of fame and announce, how she's going to go after the biggest and baddest ladies in government in New York State. I think their time is better spent trying to save CDPAP for these 600 plus businesses. Like that's the real tragedy. Fine, do whatever you want with the immigration, make a spectacle of it, have your 5 minutes that you're going to be really, really tough on that crime. But come on, focus on the stuff that actually has an impact on the taxpayers in one of the largest states in the country. I mean, the economy of New York State and what it does for the overall federal budget. I don't know, maybe California comes close to it, you know, but no one else.
Yeah, I mean, the big three: California, Texas, and New York. And look, I don't know if how much this is going to impact nationally, but a local recession possibly. I mean, you're really going to have a lot of people negatively impacted by this. It's it's
Yes,
it's a significant uh,
yes.
impact. We're doing the transition stuff. We're helping other agencies do the transition. So far, we have 100% pass rate. Knock on wood, we keep that up, and the people are doing the work. And we run a tight ship. We're making sure that the people are training. They're sitting in the class. We have the languages, the teachers with the languages, and hopefully that we keep it up. But replacing that amount for to run our businesses, and especially those agencies who have dual Elixa and FI, I mean that's a big hit. People are going to get laid off. It's going to happen, and as you stated earlier, those with interruption, that's technically a laid off and you're going to get paid minimum, sorry, not minimum wage, but your unemployment insurance, that's a percentage of your full salary. So it's going to hurt a lot of people.
As I said at the outset, the legislators are on break next week, so they will be back in the office at the end of February, where I expect the next few weeks of the budget are going to be very, very intense. I do anticipate some last minute attempts to revise what is in the health budget, which aside from CDPAP not being mentioned there at all, there's very little. So I do nonetheless expect some last minute attempts to change what's in there for home care.
The one thing outside of home care that I'm interested in seeing is uh, the the conversations around capping hospital reimbursements. I got
Mm.
this, which I think is a bit ridiculous, right? You're going to cap hospital reimbursement for hospitals that are constantly have a shortfall, and then you're going to fill it back in. So to me, it sounds like it's for show because you're always bailing out the hospitals. They're pretty powerful. That's what I'm looking forward to hearing. And then in a year, I will want to see if there's an uptick in the amount that they need to bail them out if it correlates to the shortfall or this cap. So that is all we have this week for the Home Care Forum podcast with your hosts, Sasha, Guillaume, and Emina Poricanin. Have a good one.